In this video, we're just going to put some of our work together and come up with a spreadsheet a little bit more useful than just our specification sheet. What I'm going to do is come down to the bottom of my sheet and open up a new sheet. I'm going to right click on that, rename it, and call it sales data, and start entering in some information. So for example, I'm going to put in a rep name, the product, the sales amount, the cost, and the profit. So say that we have a rep whose name is Chris, and they sell some different products like a car or cars, trucks, and buses. I have another sales rep named Robin who also sells cars, trucks, and buses. And notice that when I type that in, Excel assumes that it knows what you want to type in next, and it puts that in for you. You can just hit enter as soon as you see the word appear. So for the sales, I'm just going to make some numbers up here. We'll say that we sold 500. Let's make this 50,000. Trucks 30,000 and buses 40. And for cars, we've got 80,000, 20,000, and 70,000. For the buses. Right, for the costs, same thing. We can just make up some numbers just to test some things out. And there's my spreadsheet. So I'm going to save this and put in a few things. So what I've done so far is I've entered in some text, I've entered in some numbers. Now I want to do some formulas. First thing is we can type in some of our own functions. And for our functions, they follow an order of operations. And the order for operations is P, E, M, D, A, and S. In other words, anything that's done in parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. It will follow that order of operations. So parentheses are just the rounded parentheses above the 9 and 0 on my keyboard. Exponents are entered using a caret, which is above the number 6. Multiplication is an asterisk, so that's above the number 8. Division is a slash. Addition is a plus sign. Subtraction is a minus sign. So to get the profit, I'm just going to subtract the sales minus the cost. So I'll type in an equal sign. I'm going to use the pointing method to enter this in. So I want to take cell C2, so I'm going to point to that. And again, down at the bottom of my left-hand side, it says it's in point mode. Type in a minus, and then point to the cost. Cell C2 minus D2. And I get 16,000. So if I want to know what the profit margin was, is I'm going to take the profit divided by my cost, and I'm going to show that as a percent format. So I want to go to my home tab, look under the number group, there's percent, and we get 47%. So I'll highlight these two cells and I want to copy them down. So a quick way to copy it is if you highlight these cells and point to this little black box right in the lower right hand corner. That black box is called the fill handle. So I'm going to highlight my cells, point to the fill handle, double click on it, and it copies my formulas all the way down for each one of those records. Alright, I want to know what some of the totals are, so I'll put in totals down here at the bottom. I want to get the average, the minimum, the maximum, and that should be good. So for the totals, I'm going to type in a built-in function equals sum, go up to a blank cell, hold my shift key, and I'm going to cursor all the way up to sales at the top. It's alright to include the field name sales because that's text that has a value of 0. It's not going to do anything to this. So we get $290,000. I can copy that over for the total cost and profits. For the profit margin, I'm going to copy that down here, and we find out that the weighted average profit margin is 58%. In other words, it's taken $106,000 divided it by the cost of $184,000. For the average, it's equals average, and we'll do the same thing just like we did for cost, and we can copy that across. One thing you don't want to do is, it's possible you can average this, but it really gives you somewhat of a misleading number because all it's doing is it's averaging the profit margins for each one of these records, and that's not quite correct. The correct amount is this weighted average because certain costs, certain profit margins are weighted a little bit higher. So I'm just going to delete that cell out of there. For the minimum, it's equal min, and just like our average and sum, we take our range. That one, it's okay to have a minimum profit margin, so we'll include that one. And the last one we do equals max, and we find the maximum of each one of these ranges of cells. And I want to format this one with my % sign. So finally, a few of the things that I want to do is I'm going to highlight all of my data, all the dollar data, and either use a comma format, and we can get rid of the decimal points, or a $ format isn't too bad either, since all of these are probably in dollars. And we've got our spreadsheet pretty well set. A few of the things that I'd encourage you to do. I've got this data entered in as a list of records, and I'll show you why we want to do that in just a minute. Up at the top we've got rep, product sales, cost, profit, and profit margin. Those are what are called field names. And each one of these columns is a field. So the rep field, product field, sales field, and so on. So I'm going to highlight those cells. I think it's best to boldface them, center them, use wrap text, and notice when I use wrap text, profit margin is kind of adjusted for the width of that column, and we're good with that. Save my work here. Another thing that I want to do is I might want to keep track of the original order that I had these records entered into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on column A, choose insert, type in the word order or record number or something like that, rec, and a pound sign would be okay. I'll take the formatting that I had done on this previous cell, use my format painter, highlight that, and then if I've got literally hundreds of records, a quick way to enter this in is you type in 1, 2, and 3, start a series of the numbers, format them. So I use the comma format, reduce the decimals, and then I just double click on my fill handle to extend that series. Now for this one I only had 6 records, so I could have just typed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but imagine if you had 200 records on this. It's a quick way to get all the records that we have there. Now I'm going to narrow up some of these columns. So I'll highlight those columns, go between any one of the column letters. Up here, notice it's up here right where the column letters are, and you get this double-headed arrow. Just double click and that adjusts the column width. One other thing that we're going to want to do is go to cell A2, because what I want to do is I want to lock in this set of field names in place. So I'm going to click on cell A2, click on the View tab, choose Freeze Panes, and Freeze Panes. That way, if I would have hundreds of records, imagine as I scroll down through these, I can still see those field names that I locked in place above cell A2. So when you do freeze panes, it'll lock anything above wherever your cell pointer is, and also anything to the left of where that cell pointer is. In this case, there's nothing to the left, so that's why it only shows this for kind of the rows that are locked in place. A few other things that we can do with this is we can try to sort my data. So I'm going to go to Home, choose Sort and Filter, and I want to find out which sales were the largest. So I'll choose largest to smallest, and there you can see it sorted my records from Robbins Cars being in first place. Now let's sort this back by the record number. So I'll just choose Sort smallest to largest. We're back in the original order. Alright, so that's a little bit about entering in some formulas, trying some simple sorting with a list of records, and next time what we'll do is we'll add some headers and footers to this page and we'll be all set.